Is it allowed for women to appear in public places lecturing? Is it allowed for women, for example, to interview a man? Is it allowed for women to, for example, have Instagram or YouTube channels speaking about Islam or giving lectures? And they sometimes reference a hadith attributed to Lady Fatima, salawatullahi wa salamu alayha, which states, من سعادة المرأة أن لا ترى رجلا وأن لا يراها رجل. It is amongst the honor of a believing woman, a mu'minah, where she does not see other men and other men do not see her. And this hadith is often quoted. Now, before we speak of this hadith, let me give you a perspective, brothers and sisters. Some of you might be living in Saudi Arabia, some of you might be living in Qatar and Bahrain and Iraq. And culturally, things are much different for you there. For example, if you go to Mecca and you find a woman that is not wearing, the niqab or sometimes the whole face covering, it could be or Riyadh, or for example, within the Arabic culture where most and the majority of women are covering their face, it could be an area of seduction or some sort of incomplete hijab. Though our scholars are firm, many of them do not see that it is obligated of a woman to cover her face, period. Some, very few, who see that this is wajib, they say if the woman has an astonishing beauty, where she knows if she leaves the house without covering her face, she's going to attract the wrong type of attention. So that's that about a woman showing her face in terms of hijab. Is it allowed or not? That is something that I think is very clear within the statements of the fuqaha. Now, is a woman allowed to speak? Is a woman allowed to preach? Is a woman allowed to become a scholar? I think, is a woman allowed to become a scholar? Is a woman allowed to have a YouTube channel, for example, or Instagram to discuss religious things? Absolutely, yes. We have had many scholars who are fuqaha, who are ulama from the community of the sisters, the Muslim women, and we have been encouraging women to step up and to seek knowledge and to teach. Now let us come to this hadith. First of all, scholars, legends such as Ayatollah al-Khoi and others have said that this hadith has no basis. And other scholars from a chain of narrators, from reliable sources, this is what, for example, Sayyid al-Khoi and others have stated. Other scholars have gone further and said, this goes against the teachings of Fatima herself. Why? Because Fatima was teaching Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. We have, from one tradition, we have Hadith al-Kisa narrated by Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, where Fatima told Jabir what happened. So they don't contradict each other. The main one is that it happened at the house of Salama, and it's narrated in the books of the entire community of Muslims in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim and the rest of the books. The other one says that Fatima was telling Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari what happened. So Jabir was one of her students. Salman was one of her students. Now, did Fatima to Zahra mean that she never spoke to someone, or does she mean that she had a face covering? That is a completely different story. However, I want to re-emphasize on this point that culture plays a role in determining how a scholar, how a Muslimah should behave in different communities. For example, in some communities in the Middle East, you find that they have borders and barriers between men and women within a lecture hall, and that is completely acceptable. However, that is not acceptable in the West. And we have to understand our needs. Islam is not a religion that makes our life more difficult. Yes, if on the sister's side hijab is not observed, if on the sister's side there's a sort of dress that would go against the the guidelines of gathering in a community, that's a completely different story. However, we engage in the West with women. We go to college, we go to work, we encounter with them every single day. And part of our culture is to empower women, is to allow them to be part of the decision making. It's to allow them to be part of the leadership within our community. I think I've said enough about this particular issue, and I think that should suffice in answering this particular question.